You're probably more careful with money than most people. You pay your bills on time. You don't blow your paycheck at the casino. You think before you commit to something big. You've got a rough sense of where your money goes. And you're still paying somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 a year in taxes you never agreed to. Not to the IRS, not to your landlord. To the companies that figured out a long time ago that the most profitable customer isn't the reckless one. It's the responsible one. The one who reads the brochure, feels good about the decision, and never looks at the total. I'm Henry, and I'm going to show you 12 places where that's happening right now. Not because you've been careless, but because these systems were specifically engineered to be invisible to careful people. Once you see them, they stop working. It's that simple, and it starts right now. Before we get into the list, let me give you something that'll make it easier to see what's actually happening. The 12 habits we're going through today don't drain your wallet in random ways. They drain it in 4 very specific ways. I'm Henry, and I call them the 4 invisible taxes. There's the fear tax. You pay it because someone painted a vivid picture of the worst case scenario, and your stomach tightened. There's the status tax. You pay it for the feeling of having arrived somewhere, of owning something that signals something about you. There's the inertia tax. You pay it not because you want to, but because canceling feels harder than just letting it keep going. And there's the hope tax. You pay it for a future version of your life that you're imagining, not experiencing. Every single item on this list falls into one of those 4 categories. Once you've got the framework, you'll start seeing it everywhere in products we haven't even gotten to yet. But first, one thing that matters for how you hear all of this. None of this is about living like a monk or flinching every time you open your wallet. Money exists to be used. A life spent feeling guilty about every purchase isn't wealth. It's just a different kind of misery. The goal here is sharper than that. It's to find the spots where you're paying a premium and getting almost nothing real back. Plug those leaks and you can spend freely on the things you actually love. That's the whole game. And here's something I'm going to do. I'm Henry that most people covering this topic don't. As we go through each item, I'm going to give you the annual number, what each one of these taxes is actually costing you per year. At the end, we'll add them all up. The total might change the way you think about your entire financial picture. Let's begin. The first one is the brand new car. This is a status tax. There's a feeling people chase when they drive a new car off the lot. The smell, the clean dashboard, the sense that you've arrived somewhere. That feeling is real. The price tag attached to it is also very real, and a lot more expensive than most people ever stop to calculate. The average new car transaction price in early 2026 climbed above $50,000. The average monthly payment on a new car now sits close to $750. That is a second rent payment for a lot of American households, going toward an object specifically designed to lose value. And lose value it does, immediately. According to Kelley Blue Book, a typical new car sheds about 20% of its worth in the first year alone, and roughly 55% over 5 years. Drive a $50,000 vehicle home, and within 12 months, it's worth around $40,000. You didn't crash it. You didn't even scratch it. You simply owned it. Layer on the financing, new car loans in 2026 average around 7% interest, with the typical loan stretching close to 6 years, and 7-year loans becoming increasingly common as buyers strain to make the monthly number work, and you create a genuinely dangerous situation. Roughly 31% of people trading in a car this year owe more on it than the car is actually worth. They're underwater, paying interest on value that no longer exists, and then rolling that negative balance into the next loan and starting the whole cycle over. The smarter move sits one curve down the depreciation slope. A gently used car, 3 to 5 years old, has already absorbed the steepest part of that loss. The original owner paid for the new car smell. You get a reliable vehicle with most of its life still ahead of it for a fraction of the price. Same destinations, same commute. Dramatically different outcome for your net worth. Take that $750 new car payment and picture instead buying a solid used car. You can pay off in 3 years, freeing up $400 or $500 a month afterward. Put that into an index fund every month from your 30s onward, and you're not looking at a few $1,000s of difference. You're looking at a meaningful chunk of an early retirement built entirely out of the money the new car would have quietly eaten. The status tax on a new car, roughly $5,400 a year compared to the used alternative. Running total, $5,400. The second item is the extended warranty. This one is a fear tax, and it's the purest example of the category. You've felt this moment. You're at the register buying a laptop or a refrigerator or a TV, and the salesperson leans in with a concerned tone and asks if you'd like to protect your purchase. For an extra $150, you can sleep at night. It sounds responsible. It sounds like the careful adult thing to do. That concerned tone isn't an accident. It's a script. And it works because it's aimed directly at the thing that makes careful people careful. The fear that something will go wrong. Here's what that fear is actually worth to the retailer. Retailers earn 50 to 80% profit margins on extended warranties, and there's a simple reason that margin exists. The plans almost never pay out. Consumer advocate Clark Howard, citing Consumer Reports data, found that warranty buyers paid an average of about $1,000 for coverage that delivered roughly $700 in benefits. Only about 1 in 10 buyers ever files a single claim. The other paid for peace of mind they never ended up using. On the appliance side, Consumer Reports found the median gap between what a repair actually costs and what the service plan costs was around $26. You could pay for the plan or pay for the repair, and the difference between them is the cost of a couple of lunches. Here's what the salesperson won't mention. Many credit cards automatically extend the manufacturer's warranty on purchases you make with them at no cost. You may already own the protection they're trying to sell you. The genuinely careful move is to quietly set aside the money the warranty would have cost into a small repair fund. If something breaks, you're covered. If nothing breaks, you keep the money. Either way, you win, which is the exact opposite of how warranties are designed to work. Train yourself to recognize the fear tax formula when you hear it. Paint the worst case scenario, let the anxiety rise, offer a small number as insurance against the disaster. Once you hear it, the whole category of spending simply stops making sense. The fear tax on extended warranties, roughly $200 a year, running total $5,600. The third item is traditional cable TV. This one is an inertia tax, and cable is basically where the inertia tax was invented. Nobody loves cable. People who have it mostly keep it because canceling feels like a chore. The bill quietly renews while they mean to get around to it, and the months pile up into years. The average cable bill in 2026 runs around $147 a month. Once you bundle it with internet and the promotional rate expires, plenty of families are paying north of $200 every month for hundreds of channels they mostly don't watch. People are paying for a wall of content and actively using maybe a dozen channels. Nearly half of all cable subscribers say they'd cancel if the price went up again, which tells you exactly how thin the loyalty has worn. They're staying out of habit and inertia, not value. Cutting the cord genuinely pays. People who drop cable typically save somewhere between $40 and $80 a month, even after accounting for the streaming they add to replace it. Over a year, that's between $480 and $960 staying in your account. Over 5 years, you're talking about thousands of dollars for content that by most measures is simply better than what cable ever offered. Now, I want to flag something before we move on. Cord cutting was supposed to be the cheap fix. The streaming world has been quietly rebuilding the exact same trap. We'll get to that, but the comparison right now between a $200 cable bundle and a lean streaming setup is not a close call. One more thing worth saying about cable, and really about every recurring bill in your life. The Inertia Tax doesn't need you to love the product. It just needs canceling to feel slightly harder than continuing. 5 minutes on the phone or an antenna for local channels plus one streaming service can free up more money per hour than almost anything else you'll do this month. The Inertia Tax on cable, roughly $1,400 a year. Running total just over $7,000. The fourth item is upgrading to the newest flagship phone every single year. This one is a status tax, and it's hiding inside your monthly bill. Somewhere along the way, the phone stopped being a tool and became a ritual. A new model drops every fall. The billboards go up. A certain pull kicks in to trade the device in your pocket for the slightly shinier one in the ad. The trouble is that the phone in your pocket is almost certainly fine, and the new one costs more than ever. Flagship phones now pass $1,000, and even the entry-level new iPhone starts near $800. What are you actually buying for that $1,000? Increasingly, very little. The leaps between generations have flattened out a marginally better camera, a slightly faster chip, a new color, and a handful of AI features that most people barely use. The hardware reached good enough years ago. The industry knows it. The chairman of Verizon himself acknowledged that customers now hold their phones well past 36 months and called it a permanent shift. The data backs up the instinct to wait. The average replacement cycle has stretched to 3 to 4 years, and people who hold on to working phones report being perfectly happy. Every extra year you keep a functioning phone saves you the entire cost of replacing it. And when you genuinely do need a new one, a refurbished phone from one generation back often runs around $500 and performs comparably to a brand new budget model at the same price. There's a trick worth naming here. Carriers bury the cost of the phone inside your monthly bill, dressed up as a trade-in deal or an upgrade offer, often locking you into a fresh multi-year contract in the process. You stop seeing a $1,000 purchase and start seeing a $30 line item you barely notice. The discomfort of spending $1,000 at once is supposed to make you ask whether the new phone is actually worth it. When that question gets smoothed into $30 a month for 3 years, the answer defaults to yes every time. Pay attention to the total number not the monthly one, and the spell breaks. The status tax on annual phone upgrades, roughly $500 a year when you spread it out, running total about $7,500. The fifth item is bottled water, bought by the case every week. This one is a convenience tax, and I, Henry, want to use it to make a larger point. A bottle of water costs $1 or $2. It barely registers. But run it forward, and the picture changes fast. Depending on the brand and where you buy it, water costs up to 2,000 to 3,000 times more per than the water already running through your kitchen tap. Grab a 16-ounce bottle at a convenience store, and you're effectively paying about $12 a gallon, which is more expensive than gasoline. Stack that across a year, and a family can easily spend over $1,000 on water. The annual spend runs anywhere from $450 to well over $1,400. That's a vacation. That's a fully funded emergency cushion, poured out one plastic bottle at a time. And what are you actually buying for that premium? Around a quarter of all bottled water is simply municipal tap water that's been filtered and repackaged with a mountain on the label. A 2024 study found roughly 240,000 tiny plastic particles in a single liter of bottled water. Consumer Reports found so-called forever chemicals, PFAS, in 43 out of 47 brands they tested. The idea that you're buying safety is mostly an illusion. I'm not using bottled water to nitpick a small habit. I'm using it because it's the clearest possible example of how the convenience tax operates. Nobody decides to spend $1,000 a year on water. They decide to grab a bottle 400 times without ever once doing the arithmetic. The purchases that feel too small to audit are exactly the ones that compound against you, because you never question them. A filter pitcher or an undersink filter pays for itself within weeks and keeps paying you for years. The convenience tax on bottled water, roughly $700 a year, running total about $8,200. I'm Henry, and let's pause for a second. We're halfway through the list, and the invisible tax has already cost you roughly $8,200 this year from just the first 5 items, the ones that look small and ordinary. What comes next is where the real money hides, not on your credit card statement, working silently inside your financial life year after year. The 6th item is whole life insurance sold to you as an investment. This one is a fear tax, and it's the most expensive version on this list. The pitch begins with the right question. What happens to your family if something happens to you? Nobody argues with that. And that's precisely why it works so well. It starts from a place of genuine responsibility and walks you into a product that, for the overwhelming majority of households, quietly underperforms the far simpler alternative. Look at what it actually costs. A healthy 40-year-old man pays an average of around $5,500 a year for a $500,000 whole life policy. That same man could buy the identical amount of coverage with a term policy, the kind that simply protects his family, for a set number of years for roughly $400 a year. Read that again. Thousands of dollars in extra premium every single year, justified by the promise that the cash value building inside the policy is doing something important for you. Here's what that cash value actually does. It grows slowly, eaten away by fees and commissions in the early years, earning a return that even generous estimates put in the low single digits. The financial strategy that runs circles around it is so well known, it has a name, Buy term and invest the difference. Take the cheap term policy. Take the hundreds of dollars a month you just saved and put it into low-cost index funds. Run the numbers at a reasonable 7% return over 20 years, and that invested difference can grow to roughly double what the whole life cash value would have been. Same protection for your family. Far more money for your future. I want to be fair here because this isn't a villain story. Whole life has legitimate uses in narrow situations. Estate planning for genuinely wealthy families, special needs trusts where lifelong coverage matters, situations where every other tax-advantaged account has been maxed out. If you're in one of those specific situations, it can make sense. But for the typical household being sold it as a path to building wealth, it's a high-cost product wearing an investment costume. And here's the part that explains the enthusiasms of every person who has ever pitched it to you. The commissions are enormous. A whole life agent can earn a substantial portion of your entire first year of premiums as their payout. You're not just paying for insurance and savings. You're paying for the salesperson's commission, baked silently into the contract. When you understand who profits from the sale, the polish of the pitch makes complete sense. Protect your family with cheap term coverage. Invest the enormous difference yourself. Keep the commission in your own pocket, where it belongs. The fear tax on whole life versus term, roughly $5,100 a year. Running total, just over $13,000. The seventh item is high-fee actively managed funds. I'm Henry, and I'm giving this one its own category, the trust tax. Because you're paying for expertise that 30 years of consistent data says doesn't reliably exist. This one is invisible, which makes it the most dangerous item on the entire list. No charge shows up on your card. No salesperson hands you a clipboard. The money just slips out of your retirement account quietly every single year, while you're told you're paying for someone who's smarter than the market. The promise is seductive. A brilliant fund manager studying markets full-time, picking winners, staying ahead of the averages. People pay a premium for that promise. The data on whether it has been delivered is devastating. Every year, S&P publishes a study called SPIVA that compares active fund managers against the simple market index they're supposedly trying to beat. The results are staggeringly consistent. Over the 15 years ending in December of 2024, not a single one of the 22 US equity fund categories had a majority of active managers outperform their benchmark. 0 out of 22. Stretch it to 20 years, and more than 94% of domestic stock funds failed to keep up with a broad market index fund. And even that understates the problem because of something called survivorship bias. The funds that perform so badly they get shut down or merged away simply vanish from the comparison, so the surviving numbers actually flatter active management. The few managers who do beat the market in a given stretch rarely repeat it. By the time their hot streak shows up in the marketing materials and attracts your money, the streak is often already over. You end up chasing last decade's genius and paying full price for this decade's disappointment. Layer the fees on top of that underperformance. An actively managed fund might charge 0.5%, a full percent, sometimes more. A broad market index fund charges a tiny fraction of that, often just a few hundredths of a percent. 1% sounds harmless, almost too small to bother with. It is not. Consider a portfolio growing at 8% a year versus one dragged down to 6% by fees and underperformance. Over 20 years, the gap between them runs well over $1 million. The fee didn't just cost you 1%. It cost you 1% every year, compounding on a balance that was supposed to be compounding for you. The fix is almost insultingly simple, which is exactly why so few people believe it. Buy a low-cost, broad market index fund from a company like Vanguard or Fidelity. Keep your costs near nothing and let the market's long-term growth do the work without a manager skimming off the top. You won't get to brag about your stock picker at dinner. You'll just quietly keep the $1 million instead of handing it over. The trust tax on active fund fees, roughly $1,000 a year on a modest portfolio, and that number grows every year as your balance grows. Running total, about $14,300. The eighth item is stacking every streaming service at once. Remember back when we talked about cable and the inertia tax? Here's the twist I promised. Streaming arrived as the cheap rebellion against the bloated cable bill. One service, a few dollars, watch what you want. Then a second service launched its own must-see show. Then a third. Then everyone raised prices. And now the rebellion has quietly become the very thing it replaced. The average American now juggles about 5 streaming subscriptions and spends roughly $69 a month on them. One survey put total annual streaming and connectivity spending at around $3,300 in 2025. Netflix's top tier nearly doubled over 6 years. Disney's flagship service more than doubled from its launch price. Subscribe to 5 major services with no ads, and you're paying around $82 a month, which has drifted right back into cable territory. Add a couple more and you've passed it. The inertia tax here is subtle and it's deliberate. Streaming companies have spent years making billing frictionless and cancellation just annoying. Enough that you don't bother. You sign up to watch one show, finish it, forget to cancel, and 3 months later, 4. Services are silently charging the account for content nobody's watching. The discipline that fixes it is easy and a little old-fashioned. Subscribe to one service at a time. Binge what you want to watch, then cancel before the next billing date, and move to the next one. Ad-supported tiers cost $10 less per month if you can tolerate a few commercials. Treat your streaming like a rotating library card instead of a permanent fixture, and you can cut that bill by more than half without missing a single show you actually care about. But the real fix isn't willpower, because willpower fades the moment life gets busy. The real fix is a system that doesn't rely on you remembering. Set services to cancel rather than auto-renew. Put a recurring calendar reminder to review subscriptions once a quarter. Make the default outcome the one that saves you money so that doing nothing protects your wallet instead of draining it. The inertia tax on streaming stack, roughly $600 a year in subscriptions you've forgotten about. Running total just under $15,000. The ninth item is the gym membership you signed up for in January. This one is a hope tax. There's a beautiful optimism in buying a gym membership. You're not paying for equipment, you're paying for a vision of a healthier, stronger version of yourself. And that vision feels worth $58 a month, which is roughly the national average. The vision is wonderful. The follow-through is where the money quietly disappears. An estimated 67% of gym members rarely or never actually go. Half of all new members quit within the first 6 months. The average member who does keep going shows up about 1.5 times a week. Put those numbers together and a clear picture emerges. Millions of people are paying every month for a building they walk past, not into. By some estimates, Americans collectively waste well over $1 billion a year on memberships that go completely unused. Here's a small experiment that cuts through the optimism. Before you renew, look at the last 2 months honestly. How many times did you actually walk through those doors? Multiply your visits by what you'd pay for a single drop-in pass and compare that number to your monthly fee. For a lot of people, the math reveals they're paying $20 or $30 per visit, which would actually be cheaper as a casual day rate. The gym isn't selling you exercise. It's selling you the comfortable feeling of being someone who exercises. The membership card is a small monthly donation made in exchange for the permission to keep that self-image without doing the work. I'm not telling you to abandon your health. Fitness is one of the best investments you'll ever make. If you go 3 times a week and genuinely love it, the membership is worth every dollar. But if you're being honest and you go twice a month, a budget gym at $10 or $20, a set of dumbbells at home, or simply walking and bodyweight work can deliver the same results for a fraction of the cost. Pay for the version of fitness you'll actually do, not the version you imagine on January 1st. The hope tax on an unused gym membership, roughly $700 a year. Running total, about $15,600. The 10th item is paying a big company to file a simple tax return. This one is equal parts convenience tax and fear tax, and it comes with a 2026 update worth knowing. For 2 tax seasons, the IRS ran a free program called Direct File that let people file straightforward returns directly with the government online at no cost. Surveys showed people loved it. Then, after heavy lobbying from the major tax preparation companies, the program was shut down. It is not available for the 2026 filing season. The free option that threatened their business model quietly vanished. But free filing did not die with Direct File. It just got a little harder to find. If your adjusted gross income is $89,000 or less, the IRS Free File program connects you to 8 different software partners that will prepare and file your federal return at no cost. If you earn more than that and you're comfortable with your own paperwork, the IRS offers free file fillable forms to anyone, regardless of income. Volunteer programs also help lower income households, seniors, and military families file for free. Why does this matter? Because the average person who pays for tax prep spends around $250 for a simple return built on a single W-2 and a standard deduction. That's $250 for something they could have done in under an hour for nothing. Multiply that by a full working career, and you've handed a tax prep company several $1,000s to fill in boxes you could have filled in yourself. What happened to Direct File is a small but genuinely useful lesson. A free government-built tool that saved ordinary people time and money got dismantled because the companies that profit from confusion spent heavily to protect their business. The takeaway isn't cynicism, it's awareness. When a product is being pushed hard, it's worth asking who benefits from your believing you have no other option. The free path is usually one search away, hidden only by the fact that nobody's paying to advertise it. If your taxes are genuinely complicated, a business, rental properties, major life changes, a good professional earns their fee and then some. That's real value. But if your return is simple and you're paying out of habit or low-grade anxiety about getting it wrong, you're being sold a problem the free options already solved. The convenience and fear, tax on paid tax filing, $250 a year. Running total, about $15,850. The 11th item is lottery, tickets used as a financial plan. This one is the hope tax at full strength. I'm Henry, and let me say something up front. Buying an occasional ticket for fun with money you've already written off as entertainment is nobody's business but yours. The problem is the millions of households that treat the lottery as a strategy, a recurring line item in the budget, filed under hope. Americans spent more than $113 billion on lottery tickets in 2024. That is more than they spent on movies, concerts, and sporting events combined. Your chance of hitting the Powerball jackpot is roughly 1 in 292 million. You are statistically far more likely to be struck by lightning. Research suggests around 40 million habitual playing households account for the bulk of all lottery spending, with each of those households putting down around $2,500 a year on tickets. Now picture redirect that same money. $2,500 a year invested steadily in a simple index fund instead of handed to the state compounds into a genuinely life-changing sum over a working career. Not a billion-dollar jackpot, but a real near-certain six-figure outcome instead of a near-certain loss dressed up as a dream. But here's a cost the spending figures don't fully capture. Every dollar toward a ticket is also reinforcing a belief that your financial future is out of your hands and down to chance. That belief is far more expensive than the tickets themselves. Because if deep down you believe wealth is something that happens to you by luck, you stop doing the boring, reliable things that actually build it. You skip the automatic savings. You put off the investing. You wait for the windfall that almost certainly isn't coming. The lottery's biggest tax isn't the money. It's the mindset it trains you into, outsourcing your future to a drawing instead of a decision. Keep the $2,500. Keep the mindset that says you're the one in control. Both are worth more than any ticket. The hope tax on lottery, roughly $2,500 a year for habitual players. Running total about $18,350. The 12th and final item is the timeshare. I'm Henry, and I'm not giving this one a single category tag because the timeshare is every invisible tax on this list wrapped into one contract. The pitch is a masterpiece of emotional engineering. Free dinner, a charming presentation room, an ocean view, and the promise that you'll never overpay for a vacation again. By the end of the afternoon, plenty of perfectly reasonable people sign. Here's what they're actually signing. The average timeshare now costs around $24,700 up front. Because most people don't have that available, it's often financed at interest rates near 15%. That purchase price is just the entry fee. The real weight is the annual maintenance fee, and it never stops, whether you use the property or not. Those fees recently hit a record average of around $1,480 a year, and they've climbed roughly 36% in just 5 years. Some luxury tiers run well over $10,000 annually. The fees rise with inflation, with insurance costs, with every roof repair and renovation the resort decides to pass along. You have no say in any of it. Added up across 20 years, and the average owner pays over $40,000 in maintenance fees alone on top of the original purchase price. Then comes the cruelest part. A timeshare is sold as an asset, something with value you own. It behaves like the opposite. The resale market is so flooded and so lifeless that timeshares routinely sell for a single dollar, and owners are often grateful just to give them away and escape the fees. There are more sellers than buyers by such a wide margin that the price collapses to nothing. Companies even charge people hundreds to thousands of dollars just to exit the contract they were once so eager to sign. A $24,000 timeshare can balloon past $100,000 in total cost over 20 years, while its resale value sinks towards zero. The honest alternative is freedom itself. Take every dollar the timeshare would consume, the down payment, every year of fees, the compounding interest, and simply book the vacations you actually want when you actually want them, wherever you want to go. You'll spend less, see more places, and never owe a dollar to a resort for a week you didn't even use. The timeshare is the perfect note to end on because it contains every tax type we've talked about today. It's the status tax, the feeling of owning a piece of something. It's the fear tax, sold with urgency and a ticking closing deadline. It's the hope tax, the vacation lifestyle you're picturing in your mind during the presentation. And it's the inertia tax, engineered so that walking away costs nearly as much as staying. If you can see clearly why a timeshare is a trap, you've actually developed the underlying skill set that protects you from all 12. You've learned to look past the feeling at the moment of purchase and ask the only question that matters across the whole life of the thing. Where does the money go and what actually comes back? The timeshare maintenance tax, $1,480 a year, minimum, and the full total across all 12 invisible taxes, roughly $18,000 to $20,000 a year. Let that sit for a moment. Nobody is paying all 12, but fix even half of them, 6 of the 12, and the math still works out to somewhere between $9,000 and $10,000 a year staying in your account, instead of quietly leaving it. $9,000 a year invested steadily in a broad market index fund, over 30 years at a 7% return. That gets you to approaching $900,000. Built not from a raise, not from an inheritance, not from a lucky stock pick. Built from 12 ordinary expenses that most people never stop to question, and the decision to stop paying the ones that weren't giving anything real back. That's not luck. That's not a jackpot. That's the slow, boring, near certain math that actually decides what your life looks like at 62 versus 68. Go back to where we started. You're probably more careful with money than most people. And you are. That hasn't changed. What has changed is that you now see the system that was designed to extract money from careful, responsible people while making sure it never felt like a mistake. The person who retires early isn't earning more than you. They're not more disciplined, more talented, or somehow luckier. They stopped paying taxes they didn't have to pay, one at a time, over enough years that the math couldn't be argued with. That can be you. It doesn't require a dramatic overhaul. It doesn't require giving up the things that matter to you. It just requires citing the tax for what it is and opting out. I'm Henry. Here's the one thing I'd ask you to do before you close this video. Pick one item from that list, the one you recognized in your own bank statement today. Address it this week, not someday, this week. One invisible tax at a time. That's how the math changes. If you want to understand the full mechanics of how money actually grows, the compounding, the fees, the systems that quietly work for you or against you, so that the next time someone designs a product to drain your account, you see through it the moment they start talking. I'm Henry, and I built a complete breakdown of exactly that. It covers the financial foundation that everything we talked about today is built on. It's right here, and it's the most useful place to go next.